Live and in color. It's the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. We are live on Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, and Sportsnet Plus from 4 to 6, as always. Off the Rails Friday. Yeah. Just
yes,
you and me.
Is this what it feels like to be an empty nester? Is this you and your wife at home right now with all the kids gone? Just, we don't have McKee today.
In
Our boys
for
left
producer
us.
Sammy McKee, Mark Boffo, terrific guy.
Shout out, Boffs.
Listens.
Have you seen
very
the lineup
objective.
today? The lineup's so good.
We're so good
I
on
mean,
a Friday.
like, if you put this beside Sammy's lineup, I mean, Sammy'd have to answer some questions.
Derek Brandeo and Jen
I'm
Rolick,
thrilled.
as always, on the program. Now, if someone texts 590, who gets it?
It's the old, like, tree falling in a forest. If
Does it
no one
just-
ever sees it, does it?
Does it-
Brandeo says
it-
he'll see it.
It floats. It just floats.
It's just gone. It's in the cloud.
No,
Oh, your phone's talking to us.
I'm getting talked to.
We got to have Kangaroo Court.
We will take your texts,
We
even
will.
though
Boffs can actually read
JB
them.
and I don't have a clue how it'll work. Derek says that he'll pass on his whatever you write to us. So on this Friday, please feel free in the next 2 hours. But as JB alluded to, we have a terrific show. Gord Stellick in about 10 minutes will explain what the heck we saw last night at Scotiabank Arena.
Do you have any
A
answers?
number of games we watched last night.
Yeah. So what was that? What was that Leafs game, Kip?
They do that on purpose because they knew we were coming back to do a regional game, me and you.
They did, yeah.
And they just said, let's keep the boys guessing.
I mean, we saw 2 periods of the worst hockey the Leafs have played, I don't know, since you and I have had a show, followed up by a 5-goal period.
Leafs rally from a 5-0 deficit in the third period, come oh so close only to lose 6-5 in overtime to the Columbus Blue Jackets. We, the three of us, yesterday talked about a team on occasion playing down to their opponents.
We did forecast this.
And like clockwork, like a German train, right on schedule.
We should talk about, the fact that we made some excuses for them. And not made excuses. We presented very fair reasons why they may have looked off. Third game in 4 nights. Coming off some travel to New York for back-to-back tough games there. Flu running through the team, missing a couple of guys, couple of injuries on the back end. You could see why they might feel imperfect, but that was for television. We have time to be more.
We got a ton of ideas on what we saw, but let's go to Sheldon Keefe for our first Kyper's Clipper on basically what he saw last night.
We asked them to work in the third period, not go away, give our fans something to feel good about in the third period, and wanted ourselves to be proud of what we put forth in the third period. We just talked, we didn't talk about coming back in the game or anything like that. We talked about competing, we talked about stopping the bleeding defensively and working our way back.
Are you surprised that he wasn't more critical? You think it was completely warranted to just... He's not shrugging it off, but he's not really focusing on how ugly that first 40 minutes was.
Yeah. You and I have also talked about the idea that you only have so many bullets and you have to know when to fire them, when your team should give you more. Obviously, Columbus a bad team, but do you think it's possible that that was a product of all the excuses I gave off the top of the show, that he was like, this is just not the time to ask for more. They don't have it tonight?
For me, it was abundantly clear. And those intercepted passes, right? And it was led by, at the start, with Max Domi's trying to get back to McCabe, only to have it intercepted by Johnson, to Patrick Laine, boom.
Yeah.
In the net. And outside of those really bad mistakes, and again, Morgan Riley ringing the puck around the boards.
Gregor 6 zones ahead.
Nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't moving.
Yeah.
It was like they were in quicksand. So
Yeah.
they had a scheduled practice today that got canceled for good reason.
Yeah.
Like, why are you dragging them back to the rink when their tongues were hanging out for the first 40 minutes?
I haven't even checked ice times from last night, but we saw that Mitch Marner played 10 minutes of the third period last night.
Yeah.
Which, a game like that, Columbus on a Thursday, you're down 5 going into the period. You think he's going to play 2 minutes? It's a lot.
I'm not sure. I'd make a good coach because, and you've pointed this out,
Yeah,
because you've worked with Sheldon Keefe, and there would have been a part of me last night that would have said that
none of you play.
I'm not. I don't know. Does this make me a bad coach or a bad person to sit there and say, for the greater good moving forward, I'm not going to play Mitch Marner 10 minutes to try to save a point or two. I'm not doing it.
If you look at other sports now, like look at the NBA, they sit out their best players for whole games on purpose. So I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that if a game is out of reach, even though it wasn't, but presumably out of reach at 5-0, I don't think it's unreasonable to say, we're just going to not play Mitch in the third. We're going to let these guys sit this one out. So I see your point.
Okay, let's welcome in to Gord Stellick, and we'll pick up that conversation with Gord. Former general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, does a terrific job for us always on the Fan. Gord, thanks for joining us, and I think you're probably as much perplexed as we are a little bit in terms of the same song and dance on opponents that are 25th or lower in the league, and the points that the Leafs have given up over the last few years. It's mind-boggling.
So, first of all, I think maybe if you had season tickets, this was the one game you gave away to somebody. And maybe that's why there were so many fans there in the third period, because I thought after 5-0,
Yeah.
I was a little surprised, But Kippy and Justin, remember the playoffs in the bubble, and they came back too little too late against Columbus, and Columbus won that game.
Yeah.
And here we are, how many years later? And we're riding that same kind of roller coaster far too often. So, I do. And, Justin, your point about there's only so many bullets, that it's 1/82nd of the season. So Sheldon Keefe, really has to pick and choose when he's going to go negative after a game. But yeah, this roller coaster ride, it was fun in the third period. It generally doesn't work in the playoffs.
No, it's not a great long-term plan, but, it is fascinating. And I talked to some Leafs fans who are pretty impressed with the resilience of the team. And let's be honest, that's a great rollover third period for a lot of teams to just say, it's not there tonight. This team has been trailing after the first period 12 times this year and have lost in regulation twice in those games. 10 times they fought their way back out of 12. So is there a piece of you that goes, it's kind of a good thing that they're, hold on now, I don't want to hear from you, that they're able to battle back in these games.
Is your glass as half full as Justin's?
No, Kippy, hey, come on, half full. Half full's right. I mean, to come back, seriously, from 5-0 and tie at 5-5, arguably against the worst team in the NHL. So I give them some props. And again, to put the week in context, Joe Wall gets injured. He's your best goaltender. Martin Jones comes in, does a great job of wrapping up the game in a tough game against Ottawa. They get the shutout on Saturday. Good trips to the island and against the New York Rangers. Great appearance of Samsonov on Saturday. Martin Jones filling the bill. So I think if you put it in context, the one game compared to the week and the expectations, the worries after Joe Wall got injured, then, you got to keep perspective there. But let's see Saturday. Kyle Dubas comes in. What's your bounce back? What's your message? Home ice after that kind of effort. Are you going to come out strong against Pittsburgh? We can't do this every single game. But coming back in the third period, I'm with Justin. Scoring 5 goals when you're down 5-0, and it did look like Friday night industrial hockey. That Columbus team was almost like the Los Angeles Chargers last night in the NFL game on Thursday night, the way they played in the third period. But I was impressed by the ability to have that kind of offensive firepower.
I get what you're saying, that you can't just expect to keep getting points like that, but it's as if they say to themselves that we can, and I'm with you. No team should ever sleep on this offense, but it's almost as if they believe it themselves, so they aren't too worried about maybe tightening up because they know they've got this explosive.
We'll turn it on if we need it later.
Well,
Save the nitrous button.
Take a look at our record, right? Look at the way we can score with in late minutes, and it's a great feeling, Gord, to tell yourself that we're still in any games trailing, but maybe the fact that you have this attitude that you're so good at it that you're not really that scared to take a chance when you need to tighten up.
Well, it could be just this same team, and we're talking how many months ago, not a year ago, the final 7 playoff games, they didn't score more than 2 goals. So you weren't able to dig down in that well. And against the Florida Panthers, it's a reason that you lost a series that a lot of people thought you should have won. And it's the same story every year, a disappointment, this time, albeit in the second round rather than the first round. So I do agree in the big picture. Just, in the small picture, it was hell of a third period, hell of an overtime, entertaining game. But yes, if that is the mindset that we can play that way for 40 minutes, make it. And the funniest thing, it goes every level of hockey, even kids hockey, NHL hockey, and that line about sometimes teams aren't skating. It's baffling, but it happens all the time. And you just look and you go, we're not skating tonight. Particularly that Leaf team that has that kind of speed and whatever. Like, why does that happen? If it happens too much, if it happens in the playoffs, you're going to have another disappointment. But yeah, you've got Kippy. I am keeping the perspective that you can't go. You got to keep in mind you couldn't get those goals when you really needed them. I can't say it is a mindset they have all the time. It is a dangerous mindset, but it certainly did show on certain times they've got that ability against Columbus.
Yeah, and when you're not skating, I think we talked about turnovers, Gord. The not skating thing was really what led to a lot of it. There's a lot of disconnect, and there's no one to pass to because there's no short support. So it looked a little ugly, and at times a lot of pressure on their goaltender as a result. Samsonov gives up 5, and they leave him in. And that was, something we had talked about on the broadcast as sort of a point of contention. What are your thoughts? Do you want to listen to the audio with Gord here, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to listen to.
Gord has nothing better to do.
We're just going to listen to what Sheldon Keefe has to say on.
I got nowhere to go. I'm like an officer of a gentleman. I got nowhere to go. I'm Richard Gere. I got nowhere to go.
It's clip 2 on being tempted to pull Sammy.
Yeah, very. Maybe like in the moment in the second period, we talked. I thought we just get through the second and talk about it, which we did. Curtis felt strongly that Sammy should stay in and fight and battle with the team. And obviously, I'm glad that was his advice, and I'm glad that's the decision that we made, because I like the fact that Sammy was a part of that comeback, and I like the fact that he made some saves for us early in that third too.
Gord?
Okay, well, hold on. Last night we did the game, Gord, and
I know.
Justin was real strong on keeping him in, and I was real strong on getting him the heck out. So be the tiebreaker here.
Well, I agree with you, Kippy. I was stunned to see him, and and also I wasn't really wild about that overtime goal, to tell you the truth. So I know 3-on-3, but still, I wasn't crazy about it. But I don't know. Curtis Sanford obviously knows more about the goaltender or whatever the psyche, and it turned out to be although I don't think goaltending mattered for the Leafs in the third period, but whatever. I think they were trying to send a message that it's on the team, not on the goaltender, about the way they played. And but yeah, I was surprised. But hey, when you know it, it worked out. But boy, Columbus, thank God for Columbus, man. I don't know if they lost that game, man, it can't be a pleasant feeling right now anyway, period. But if they lost that game, that would have been incredibly ugly. But I was surprised, but it was one of those games where it's like, again, it's exciting. So I don't want to dump on it, because people that third period, I'm getting texts like
dump
crazy.
On
it. Both about the excellent broadcast and the excellent panel,
right,
but also about the third period. I mean, people were jacked.
Kip, I do want to get your thoughts, because There is the idea where, your parent catches you smoking a cigarette and they make you smoke the whole pack. Like, was this the Leafs?
Really?
Was this the Leafs making Sammy smoke the whole pack? Like, two periods that were so ugly, they're like, you finish it there, pal.
Okay. Before
the cigarette analogy?
we go into the smoking the whole cigarettes here. But let me just ask you, and I'll tell you what stood out with me with his comment is that, and I know there's been goalie coaches now for 20, 25 years, and, that's not necessarily something new. But in my era, man, it was just the head coach making the decision. For Sheldon now to kind of tell us that Curtis Sanford made the call on him staying in net, to me,
sure he did.
Is like, I don't know, man. You're the head. I don't want to hear that. And I don't want to hear we decided. You're the head coach, man. You're the general back there. That has to be you. On you, everything. You can take as much advice as you want, but I'm making the call.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that from Sheldon.
I agree in this. Like, he's trying to show he used the resources, but he's been around this town, and we got a fan base that has a baseball team that apparently nobody made the decision to pull the pitcher. Okay. And you saw how that played out, the absurdity of the Toronto Jays and the, nobody apparently taking charge about pulling a pitcher that never should have been pulled. So yeah, I it's a little thing, but I agree with you, Kippy. I'm in charge. Okay, I may use someone as a resource, but ultimately I'm going to make the decision about the goaltending change. I just never heard of a parent making you smoke all the cigarettes if you're caught with one. I've heard of parents say, don't go out in the cold and smoke. You can smoke the cigarette at the dining room table or something like that. But to make poor Justin smoke 19 more cigarettes.
It was a tough day.
Hold on, Gord. We've got child services on line 3 for Justin Bourne.
So here's the thing, though, because I think there is, I don't want to call it a generational divide, but a difference in the coach's role now. I think that the term in baseball of manager, you're managing all these different elements, but there's a pitching coach who makes some pitching coaching decisions, right, in game about when a guy should come in and out. Having worked with Sheldon, I know that there's a PK guy, and Dean Chenoweth would be running that, and a PP guy, and Guy Boucher would be doing that. The sleep guy is going to tell him, should we stay overnight in this city or not? The goalie coach is going to tell him, who should I start tonight? So there's some managing and delegating and in that role. And it's interesting to see if what the different perspective is and if that's the right thing, or if, make the call. You got to be the guy at the end of the day. Are you responsible for the too many men, or is it the players? Is it,
Sets up for a lot of finger pointing, if you ask me.
It does,
here, Kippy.
But if you don't
first of all,
empower those people.
Yeah, well, the sleep guy was trying to wake up the fans after 40 minutes. So anyway, he was busy last night. But
that was
the other part, pointing fingers, you're 100% right. Every sport, what do they do? Okay, I still think you're right. The person has to be in charge, make the decisions, but the offensive or defensive coordinator is a convenient scapegoat. The pitching or hitting coach is a convenient scapegoat, and some assistant coaches along the way. So it's no longer, to your point, whether it's a generational divide, all for one, one for all. I'm going to cover my ass, okay? And I'm going to throw Kippy out as my, PK coach, because the PK is going wrong if it buys me a couple more months. But that's something that's changed. But at the end, you should always present that the decisions are yours, I believe.
I have seen Sheldon, like the power play is going wrong for 5 straight games, and he goes, you're not running the meeting today. It's not working. I'll do the power play meeting, whatever it is. And so there's a point with the goaltender where I'm sure he'd say, okay, you're not getting it right. I'm going to make the call.
We're talking to Gord Stellick, Toronto Maple Leaf analyst for Sportsnet 590, The Fan, former general manager. I'm not done on this conversation because you're telling me that they showed Samsonov some tough love, stay in there, hang in there. Yet, after the game, they don't make him available to the media. Okay? So, you want to tell him, be a big boy here.
Fight it out with your teammates,
fight it out
battle
yourself. But we're not letting you talk to the media because we're sensitive that you're sensitive here. So, that to me,
Maybe they have a performance coach who they've empowered to say he doesn't need that.
Come on, make him available. Let him stand up there and man up.
You can't have your most sensitive guy be your goalie, eh, Gord?
Yeah. And people will always say, "Oh, you media guys, you're clamoring because you're media." But I've been on the other side as well, and part of the job is that you have to talk. As a matter of fact, apparently the NHL is now trying to promote that even more because it's kind of falling behind some other leagues in that regard. And we know the quality players that are involved, the coaches, the kind of people. But you make it a story. Like when Connor Bedard didn't face the media after the Toronto game, it becomes a story. And the same thing here. It's easy. You don't have to say anything. You give your usual sound clips, sound bites. It's part of the game. But by ducking it now, you're giving some intrigue. And we've seen the worst of social media with the Chicago situation and others. So why would you feed that? Just feed the easy beast. Give us the sound bites that you guys you play on your show and everything. All that easy peasy. But then when you duck something, people start now thinking things through and espousing things out there, and it's unnecessary.
So as far as the progression here into Saturday, I'll go to you, JB, first, and then we'll hear from Gord. But did that decision lead to Samsonov Saturday night against Sidney Crosby?
I would do it. I would play Samsonov. I think I was saying last night he's played 12 or 13 games this season. He had a pretty good third period for him to hang around. The idea is that you're letting this guy play his way out of trouble. You don't benefit by playing Martin Jones. And what if Jones is good? What if he plays really well? You really complicate things for yourself. So, yeah, I'd go back to Sammy. I don't know about you, Gord.
Well, wait. You can't be afraid. What if Martin Jones is good?
Yeah.
That's good.
Well,
what if my mom's good
to be your playoff guy? You're trying to solve playoff problems.
So, it's a depth. Getting Martin Jones, getting him through waivers, great move because they've added goaltending depth, and that seems to be there's only one Vasilevsky. There's depth in Las Vegas, depth in Colorado. I thought they played him the full game because they want to start Martin Jones tomorrow. So I don't know which one it is. I don't have a problem either way, but I don't have a problem if Martin Jones is the starter tomorrow night. I have a problem if they come out the way they did the first 40 minutes against Columbus, because if you're talking about winning the Stanley Cup or being a Stanley Cup contender, that's not a habit you can do once again.
Do you want to go right to Keith on that very thing?
Okay, let's go to Sheldon.
Clip 3 on why they can't play like that from the start.
We had our game at different times. We just kind of lost our way. I thought we had, like I said, we had the puck on our stick three times, maybe 4 times before the first goal, and we failed to make a play on it. And then that was sort of became the issue the rest of the period. It couldn't break out. Couldn't get out of the zone. It's a real hard game to play if you can't get your feet moving or can't make a play come out of your end. And like I said, and now you're giving them the puck, and they have great skill. That's a young team that moves the puck extremely well, lots of speed and confidence with the puck. And
yeah, there's tons to clean up here. Sorry, guys, I just can't get this Samsonov thing out of my head right now. So let me just ask you guys now. He had a bad training camp. Then it became, give him a couple of weeks. Now a couple of weeks has become Christmas. How far do you go here? Right to the trade deadline to get his game going? Is there a chance now? Is there more of a chance now that he just doesn't rebound back this season than the first 2 weeks of let's wait and see?
At last check, he's 61st in the NHL in save percentage. Are you implying that maybe Martin Jones could be ahead of him on their depth chart come playoffs?
Here's the problem. If Samsonov does not find his game, and you want to go with Joseph Woll, and we all assume Joseph Woll's coming back, and we all assume that, hey, he should be able to kind of pick up where he left off and be great. But what happens if he gets hurt again? What are you left with? You have to be sure of the second guy is capable. And to your point, if you're going to spend all this energy and time to keep going back to Samsonov and it doesn't come back, you're not doing Martin Jones any favors of helping him get ready just in case he's needed.
Well, I'm thinking that's what I'm saying. I have no problem. Martin, they took Samsonov to arbitration, okay? that shows it's not like, here's the contract. We want you 3 years at $4 million a year. No, we're not sure about you. We really like Joe Wall, the way he finished up. We like the way you started, but not the way you finished at the end. So I say dime a dozen, but basically you're in that category that we can look to replace the Samsonov in the offseason, just like a Peter Mrazek or a Matt Murray or, whatever, Jack Campbell, whatever they've had before. So again, Kippy, last year, we always use the one example. It's an inexact science. Who knows? But Sergei Bobrovsky was a healthy non-starter when the playoffs started because that's how he'd been playing. And then all of a sudden he got hot at the right time. The Leafs just need that one goaltender to do what Eddie Belfour and Cujo did all those years ago in the playoffs and, come up with not necessarily steal the playoffs for you, but be strong in the playoffs. And if it's Martin Jones, great. If Samsonov gets it together, that's great. I always think when you go down that road and you're not getting it, it's a slippery slope and you don't bounce back, but you never know. And best case scenario, Joe Wall's healthy and he's kicking ass.
Yeah. The one thing I do think is that Samsonov has been good. He's youngish, whatever. I worry about spending an asset because now you're talking about, I think, maybe need to get someone, right? But you need so many holes patched. Do you want to spend your money to patch that hole when maybe it might fill itself in?
But when does that become a real huge concern? Do you think he's still got another month to straighten everything out? Are you comfortable giving him another month to find his game? Some of those goals last night were bad.
Yeah, like the one that went through his shoulder.
Cannot and the sliding, the overplaying, the inability to really control your movements from post to post. That's a huge concern, guys.
He looks like Kippy at Studio 54 in his day in New York there, all that movement in the crease. That's what I think. Kippy, who you going to get, though? Okay, you're going to give a first-round pick like Edmonton did for Dwayne Rolison. You're going to get the NHL version of rent a goalie. Okay, that's what Tampa Bay looked at when Vasilevsky was injured. I mean, like the elite goaltenders don't move in season generally.
Yeah.
And that's so you want another body, you want a David Riddick like they did a couple of years ago, just for depth reasons. You're not going to get the guy that's going to take you through the playoff run in season. It's got to be one of those three: Joe Wall, Samsonov, or Martin Jones.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, we solved nothing there.
Zero, Gord. Zero. And speaking of Studio 54, I'm watching you on the Zoom call. You got a real party purple shirt on right now.
It's kind of it's my it's sort of my Tommy Bahama Magnum PI when he's retired in the seniors home kind of shirt that I'm wearing, espousing today. But then going to watch hockey and curling later on. And Kippy, great column in the Toronto Star. That was a great column about the media and just what we talk about, what the challenges organizations have nowadays and how they have to manage it and handle it and have the goaltender come out and talk and address things in Chicago when that's going south. And Jordan Kyrou's got to be careful what he says when he makes a remark about Craig Berube. If he said what he said last night, he would have been fine. So anyway, I thought it put a lot of context, and that is big. Those are big challenges for players and organizations nowadays, that reality.
Just trying to follow in your footsteps as a brilliant writer and an author, and your book's out now. Looking forward to it. Great Christmas present. Revival.
Buy it.
Buy it.
That's our pitch.
Buy it.
Buy Revival.
And we got Doug MacLean in the second hour on this Off the Rails Friday, so he's going to tell us how he's like a world-renowned author as well. Gord, please come back on the show and save us.
Well, I got Kyper's book, I've got Justin's book, and there's something very satisfying about a book nowadays. So yeah, we always appreciate the support because it's a labor of love, that's for sure.
Always terrific stuff when we come to you, Gord. We really appreciate your time, pal.
See you guys. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Gordo. Talk soon.
Former general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Gord Stellick.
Hey, what'd you make of Ryan Reeves' injury? What happened there?
Well,
Not good.
I felt his pain.
Yeah.
Not only the physical one that he absorbed when he hit the boards, but just, hitting a rut and just pulling the full Bambi sometimes on ice.
That's how I tore my MCL. I was actually in Hershey. Just caught a rut and got hit at the same time with my skate in a rut, and see you later.
And I'm not pointing any fingers at any maintenance people because I've gotten in trouble on a few occasions already.
Yeah. No.
And the temperature's great in here, by the way. Yeah. But like I told you last night, I'm watching the puck blow up on a few sticks,
playing
and I'm
gravel.
like, I don't know how good the ice was last night.
Yeah, we're guessing from a distance, but it's either a whole bunch of people mishandling pucks at the same time, or
Well, I hope he's okay. It didn't look very good, but let's hope there's
going off the ice.
Good
Did you
news.
see that? And this is a weird one. And I don't mean to like Zapruder the film
camera
here, but
the camera just cut away when he was actually going down about 6 feet off the ice. And I think it looked to me like something gave out.
I'll say it. He went down.
He went down, but something gave. An ankle, a knee, a kneecap.
Yeah.
Something.
If you don't have a ligament that can, total speculation. We're just like, he fell. I don't know. Maybe he just randomly fell. But whatever it was, he didn't need a fall. That is not well timed.
Once again, well wishes for Ryan Reeves and hope we get some good news on his injury from last night.
Yeah, tough when you're looking for momentum to have to sit out a long time.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we return, Phil Bourque will join us as we tee up Toronto Maple Leafs and the Pittsburgh Penguins, Hockey Night in Canada. Radio analyst for the Penguins and two-time Stanley Cup champion, Phil Bourque, next on Real Kyper and Bourne. All right, to help us tee up the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Pittsburgh Penguins Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada. Never gets old talking about Sidney Crosby on a Saturday night. Let's welcome in Phil Bourque. Does a terrific job covering the Pittsburgh Penguins. Bourque, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Kyper, I'm doing well. Justin, I should say. Good to talk to you guys. And things are well. Win a couple games, all is well. I'll tell you one thing though. The one thing about this game, guys, winning is so much more fun than losing. Man. The Penguins, I tell you what, just the mood around the team. You know what I'm talking about. Even around the offices when you're home at PPG Paints Arena, the mood around Penguineville is so drastically different when you've won a couple games.
Bourque, before we get into specifics on the team and what we'll see Saturday night here, just talk a little bit about where the fan base or the Pittsburgh Penguins in general, and maybe even we go back before the Kyle Dubas era and the bringing of Karlsson. But, here's a team closing in on 20 years with Sidney Crosby. They missed the playoffs last year. Gino went through this window, Malkin, of course, of will he stay, will he go? Do you want him back? Do you not want him back? Is it over? Is it not over? And just where expectations were. That we thought we were kind of seeing a little bit of an end of an era. And then the Kyle Dubas thing happens. Then Karlsson happens. And yet we look at the Metro and they're second last in the division. So where are fans here with the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Don't forget about the sale of the team to the Fenway Group. Kind of throw that in there too.
Sure.
I say something on the radio and people go, "Bourque, what do you mean by that?" And I kind of say it tongue in cheek. I say, "We are the Penguinis." What does that mean? That we don't do anything the easy way. I mean, going all the way to 30 years ago when I played, Mario went through all his injuries and it was never easy. It's just the way we do things here for whatever reason. The names have changed, but the way we go about our business has not. Nothing comes easy to us. And here we go again. So to answer your question, the fan base is really on the fence with this team, I think, as giddy with excitement because what was they were hoping to happen here. But it's been of a little bit of frustration, to be honest with you, because of the inconsistencies of not only the special teams, but the star players, not getting enough scoring from your depth guys. The one thing that's been the constant, though, that has been a breath of fresh air and a pleasant surprise is the consistency of the goaltending, because that's been a point of controversy. And nobody really knew how good Alex Nedeljkovic could be, and he's been rock solid. It's been a nice 1-2, if you will, with Tristan Jarry, and I think they have quietly pushed each other to be better goaltenders. So that has been a strong point for the Penguins. But the short answer is that there's a little bit of frustration from the fan base because they expected this team, the way it's been orchestrated and designed by Kyle, that they should be better than they are right now.
And, part of that is very similar to how Dubas had the Leafs kind of structured, where you have a number of big name stars who are expected to sort of drag the team into it. I did the game against Montreal the other night, and Sidney Crosby's still Sidney Crosby. My God, Jake Gensel's brilliant, the work ethic and smarts. They got all these pieces. Give me an update on Malkin, because I thought he was pretty bad in that one particular game. His season is still pretty good, 10 goals, 24 points. Where is he at in his ability to help drag a team somewhere?
It's frustrating for Gino right now. He's gone 7 games without a goal, just one in his last 11. He came out of the gate absolutely firing, 5 goals in his first 7 games, but here's the thing with Gino, and I've been around since day number 1 for Gino. When he's playing his best, guys, he is playing north. Forget about this north-south. It's north. It's to the net. And Riley Smith was really good for him early on because they were both. It's almost like Riley was telling Gino, hook your wagon to my wagon and let's go. Let's get to the net. Something, I don't know if it's since there's been kind of a rotation on the right side, a different winger almost every other game. But they started going east-west. And when both of those players started going to east-west, the goals just kind of dried up for both of them. So it's frustrating that I don't know if that's a great answer, if it answers your question. But I've noticed with Gino, when he does this, when he starts going east-west, he's trying to do too much. Mm-hmm. He cares so much. And it's frustrating if you don't watch him on a regular basis and you watch him in just that game in Montreal, you're like, he wasn't good. Right. He wasn't good at all. But it's him trying too hard. He cares so damn much, but sometimes his heart's in the right place, but his compass is pointed in the wrong direction.
Got to ask you about Erik Karlsson and just the overall impact. And
sure,
again, talking about the game the other night, the David Savard first goal was a tape by Karlsson, unfortunately, to the wrong guy. But should anybody be really surprised on how he just, I don't know if I'm saying it hard enough, the struggles of his defensive game? Is that should they be surprised? Should Kyle, you traded for that? We've seen it throughout his career. What were you expecting, Kyle?
Nikki, the way you were kind of stumbling and bumbling to get those words out of your mouth about Kyle, I'm the same way, man. I get you try to find the words. How do you describe Erik Karlsson? Now, I play with a guy like Paul Coffey. You and I both play with a guy like Brian Leach, who had some risk, some gamble in their game, but they also knew the situations. And that's where, for choice of better words, I have a problem with Erik Karlsson's game, or I think he needs to make that adjustment. It's situational hockey. If you were just down 2 goals and you battle back to make it 2-2, I don't think you can play like you're down 5 goals. And he plays this high-risk style no matter what the score is. And he's unapologetic about it. And that's fine because he oozes with confidence. I don't know if there's another player in the league that just fires away off the seat of his pants and plays off of instinct the way that Erik Karlsson does. There are some pluses to that, but also I think in the long run, it might work in some games against some weaker teams or just because he's so damn talented. But you're not going to win in the long run playing that way. That's the end of the story. And so I think some tweaks and adjustments. Listen, he's incredibly talented, probably end up in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
For all the Norris trophies that he won. But at the end of the day, if you can have 15 Norrises on your mantle, who gives a hoot, right? Because the ultimate goal is to win a Stanley Cup, and you got to play the right way. And I'm not saying he plays that way all the time, but when he gets into that mode of go, 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 I'm going for it, no matter what the score is, no matter what the situation is, no matter who I'm on the ice with or who I'm on the ice against. I think you got to kind of bundle that up a little bit because it can be too high risk at times.
So you got him doing that. We know Letang is a great offensive defenseman as well. In the offseason, Dubas also went out and got one of his big moves was Ryan Graves. a guy who makes 4.5 till, for 6 years or something like that. How has his addition to the Penguins gone so far? I think he plays top pair with Letang by and large.
Yeah, and just real quick, I don't know if you're going to ask me about Chris Letang, but he's been unbelievable. If you want me to talk about him, I'd be more than happy to. But yeah, he's been unbelievable.
Yeah.
Maybe his numbers don't bear out, but this is the best. I've been watching Chris Letang for years, and at times he would drive me crazy because he would kind of play that little bit of high-risk style. This is the best year I've ever seen him play. He is an absolute beast out there. And his numbers don't bear out, and he probably won't even get a vote for the Norris, but I don't think he cares. I think when Erik Karlsson came in, I think it was almost a relief for him that he doesn't have to drive the offense anymore. He's been incredible on the PK, and this is as well-rounded a Chris Letang I've ever seen him. But as far as Ryan Graves, who's been paired with Tanger all year, he's been good, but I think he needs to be better, more consistent. And to be honest with you, at 6'5", 215, 220, I know it's not in his DNA, but he's got to be a son of a you-know-what. I think that you got to get outside your comfort zone a little bit, Gravy, and you got to be a real Richard on the ice, if you know what I mean, because we need it. We don't have enough of it on the backside. We've brought in John Ludwig, who's brought some jam back there. But at the end of the day, if you want to really win a Stanley Cup, you got to maybe get punched in the face a few times, maybe get 2 in, take 3. When you're that big and you're going to be playing the minutes with Chris Letang, you got to be more of a disturber out there. And so that's a long-winded answer to your short question. But at the end of the day, he's been good for the most part, but there's another level for Ryan Graves, and he needs to get there.
Really speaks volume of the character of Letang to watch a guy like Karlsson come in and not
be better,
right, and be okay with that,
be better,
and still bring the best out of your game. So that's great insight, Bourque. But when it comes to Letang and Crosby, man, they've got the recipe. They know what it takes to win. Can they not influence? If Crosby can't influence Karlsson on how to play the right way, then I'm sorry, nobody can.
No, you're right.
Yeah. I guess it falls on Mike Sullivan, right? At the end of the day, I mean, he's the general, right? And you got to find a way. And that's the challenge of coaching superstar players, is to get them to buy in, to play the right way on a consistent basis. It shouldn't fall on Sid, just like it shouldn't ever fall on Mario back in the day. Sometimes your teammates can give gentle reminders, but at the end of the day, it's got to come from the head coach to hold that player accountable to, and Mike Sullivan says, I don't want to take the stick out of their hands. I get that, but still, if they're running into a different pasture than all the other horses, and it's disruptive to the main goal of playing the right way to win a Stanley Cup, then the hard conversation needs to be had. And it's better to have it now than to wait till February and March to have it, because then maybe that ship has sailed.
Okay, you brought up Mike Sullivan. We listened to Kyle Dubas last week talk about his coach and give the reinforcement, but there's a lot of general managers that probably wouldn't have even touched the topic just to not draw attention to it. Like, are people saying it's maybe time for a coaching change because this is regarded as one of the best coaches for the last 10 years?
Well, when you go through a losing spell like we went through, it doesn't matter who you are. The whispers are going to be out there. And social media all of a sudden has some flex, some muscles, right? And if it got back to Kyle, I'd rather the general manager get out there, get ahead of it, and just say, hey, whatever people are saying and whispering about, stop it. This is the guy. This is the guy that we are going to stick with, and he is going to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Period. End of story. And then you stop talking about it, right? Because you're like, okay, we know Fenway's behind him. Now we know the general manager is behind him also. So he is the guy. I mean, here's the other thing that I tell people all the time. Okay, let me entertain your thoughts and your frustrations. Penguins aren't winning enough. Let's get rid of Sully. You want to get rid of Sully and bring in who?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Did you guys say?
Well, now it's Berube.
No, come on. But to bring in a better coach than Mike Sullivan, he's one hell of a coach. He's a bit of old school. But again, it's a challenge when you are coaching this many personalities egos, whatever you want to call it, guys. They're superstars. It's not that easy, man. But that's the challenge for Mike Sullivan. And yeah, the sand is going through the hourglass with these guys. I mean, Tanger and Sid, they're 36. Gino's 37. There's no time for nicey to sit and wait and for these guys to get it together. If that hard conversation needs to be made, it needs to be made now, and forget about hurt feelings.
So, Bourque, where do the Penguins fit into the Metro Division by true talent? I look at goal differential. If you look at the end of the year, goal differential is like the separator between playoffs and not. They're +9. Ahead of them are the Devils at -2, Capitals -9, Islanders -3. Like, they're not a 7th-place team in the Metro, are they?
No, they're not. And they're still within striking distance. And with all the ups and downs that they've had, they're still with 4 points of a wild card spot, 6 points from being second in the Metro. So it's all right there for them on the table. And you look, they got the Leafs on Saturday, they got Minnesota, then they got Carolina at home, and then they go into Ottawa, and they got St. Louis and the Islanders to close out 2024. So it's all on the table for them to get right into the hunt. But you're right. The one that kind of skews that number a little bit is they had that 10-2 win in San Jose. So that +8, if you take that out of the mix, you know, they've kind of been wishy-washy, if you will. They understand. They're all big boys, and if you talk to them about it, they don't sugarcoat it. They don't sweep it under the rug. They know we have not been good enough, and we got to get our act together. And the one guy, right, you brought him up earlier, the one guy that is the constant, the guy that just keeps dragging everybody into the fight, dragging everybody up the standings is 87. You just can't believe the way this guy battles and finds way to put pucks in the net, finds way to have that yin and the yang with Jake Gensel, the great chemistry. And really, there's been a rotation. It looks like Ricard Raquel might be back tomorrow night and be up there with Sidney Crosby. And you wonder if they can catch lightning in the ball, because Rax has not scored yet this year in the 17 games he's played. But Sidney Crosby has been the guy, the one constant, as well as I mentioned, the goaltending, the one constant that's been able to keep the Penguins in this fight.
He looks like he's 25 years old. I mean,
know,
he's worth the price of admission right by himself.
But I don't have to tell you guys, and I use this saying all the time, I'm going to use it again, so I apologize if you heard it before. When preparation meets opportunity, that's when you have success. And Sid is preparing for this since he was, 12, but also in the off season, game day routines, everything he does to keep his body peaked, to keep his mind peaked, and to keep that stoking that competitive fire that he keeps white hot all the time. We are so damn lucky to have him here, because you never want to think of what if, he wasn't here, because he's the guy that keeps, every time this team dips down, 87 rises up and keeps dragging them back into the fight.
Let's get the puck drop right now. I want to watch him. I want to watch
Saturday
Sid. I want to watch Sid versus the Leafs. Hey, Bourque, we asked you to help us tee up the game, and you did that and some more. Thanks for doing this, pal.
All right, guys. I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Bourque.
Really good
Time.
good time.
Stanley Cup
Good
champion. Phil Bourque.
Yeah, bud.
And he's been there, done that.
Yeah.
You can just listen to him and get a sense that he knows what it takes to win.
The most telling answer is the one on Carlson, where you're trying not to say this guy is a defensive liability. He's trying not to say he's a liability, because he's so good at what he does, creating offense, making passes, setting people up, producing offense. But at some point, you need to be able to adjust your risk slider.
Okay,
a little.
We're going to wrap up this hour. We're going to thank Gord Stellick and Phil Bourque for joining us. And in the second hour, back, tell us what week it is for his book's bestseller.
Is this still in the bestseller?
I don't know. He's going to tell us all about it. Doug MacLean, Off the Rails Friday. It's a whole new level in the National Hour. Don't go away. Plenty more, including Jordan Kyrou. Wow. Let's welcome everybody into the national edition of the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee on assignment.
We haven't mentioned yet. Yeah, look, there we go. We got our Zags shirt up for him there. Sammy?
It's almost like he's a ghost.
It is a...
Is he there? Is he watching me?
I don't know. That's what I look like after not getting outside in the winter. I'm almost there.
We are live on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. This hour of Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. On the on-deck circle, Doug MacLean.
Oh.
Going to get his thoughts as we go around the National Hockey League last night. Vancouver doing a pretty good job of thumping his former Florida Panthers 4-0 on Luongo night.
You know, you just need a goalie whose last name has an O at the end. Just Luongo, Demko, you got a number one, you're good to go. It was very poetic.
Okay, let's welcome him in. Why wait? Right? Why? He's a busy guy.
He's here, let's go.
Former NHL president, GM, head coach, author of Draft Day, How Teams Pick Winners or Get Left Behind. Doug, we're going to go to the CAF, maybe get a coffee. You can talk about where your book is on the bestseller list, and we'll be back here in about 5 or 7 minutes.
You know what? I think you probably know where it is on the bestseller. It's 11 weeks in a row. Oh, I have a prop here. See, when you're a best-selling author.
Vanna White in the house.
Okay, you can.
You're brutal.
So, look. Guys, 11 weeks in a row on the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail bestseller list. But I went to PEI to do a night last week, and it was unbelievable. They sold out. They had 350 people show up for this event, and it was about the book. But George Delant came with me, and we did a hot stove. We had a ball. And George Matthews, the former play-by-play man of the Columbus Blue Jackets, who was a buddy of mine, said that he doesn't mind introducing me as a former coach and a former GM and a former president and a former school teacher and a former TV radio star in Toronto. He had trouble saying best-selling author. That's what he had trouble saying. And you know what? It's you know what? I'm kind of pleased about it. But I had a call yesterday from my good friend Jimmy Devellano called me. And Jimmy says, Doug, Jimmy Devellano here. I'm a hockey historian, Doug. As you know, I'm 80, turning 81, and I love hockey, and I love the history of hockey. Your book was so accurate. It was unbelievable. So there's the compliment. What more of a compliment can you get than from a Hall of Famer, Jimmy Devellano, about the book? Enough about the book. Let's talk Leafs.
God, you write, you do impressions. Like, when do the movie rights come out to your
Did
book?
you retain the movie rights?
Like,
I retained them. Did you guys retain them to your books, your movie rights?
I did retain mine, yeah.
who's going to play you, Mac? Because all the actors I can think of are dead.
Rip from Yellowstone is going to play me.
Jason Momoa, second in line.
And Beth is going to play Jill.
Okay. Make sure. I don't think Beth's hands are as nice as Jill's.
Anyway.
Okay, let's start with today. Who you think is the best team in Canada? Because I don't think it's that easy to come up with an answer, and has a lot to do with maybe Winnipeg and Vancouver right now, and Edmonton coming off their 8-win streak that ended last night.
Yeah, and look, you can't throw Toronto to the side either, because I mean, what are they, second in their division right now, and you know, without playing probably as well as they can play. So all of a sudden, Edmonton's on top of their game till, you know, Skinner missed a beat last night with a couple of dreadful goals. But overall, you've got Vancouver looks real good. Winnipeg looked pretty good. Edmonton looked pretty good. And Toronto looked pretty good. You know, except, remember I used to go and watch you in that noon hour hockey you used to play with Eric Lindros and Mike Gardner and all your buddies. I used to show up there and I was like your fanboy, carry your kit bag in and watch. That's what that game reminded me of last night. I was expecting to see Mike Gardner and Kypreos break down the wing and with a big slapper. I mean, that was pond hockey. That was the ugliest win in the history of the National Hockey League.
Oh, boy.
No, he's
when
not
you
wrong.
have a 5-0 lead and you win 6-5 in overtime, it had to be the ugliest win in the history of the National Hockey League. Agree or disagree?
What do you? Yeah,
The third period
I
was
can't
barely
argue.
hockey.
What do you do as a
It was
coach there? You just
You know what you do? Hold on. Let me stop you. Call a damn timeout.
Oh,
He didn't call one.
I know.
I know you only
It
have
was
one.
unbelievable. But he was, I don't know what went on, but the timeouts was bizarre to say the least. But you know what? It just shows you the firepower Toronto can bring. Hey, listen, Matthews is on pace for 70 goals, boys. Who would believe that when you look at a lot of nights the way they've played? But hey, they've won. They've got points, and Keefe said it after the game. It was a big point we got, and I thought for sure they'd win the game when it went to overtime. But man, it was ugly. It was ugly to watch.
Yes,
but fun.
It was
fun.
It was all those things. So last night in Vancouver, they honored Roberto Luongo, but they didn't retire his jersey. Do you have any feeling whether one matters or not, or if he should be upset? Fans, I only ask because fans in Vancouver, a lot of them believe this guy's in the Hall of Fame. How are we not putting him up there with Naslund and the rest of the guys?
Like, seriously, I don't get that. I'm 100% on with you, Justin. I just think it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the guy took them to the Stanley Cup Finals. They should have won that series. Nick, we were there. They should have won that series against the Bruins. Remember, it just collapsed on them. He should be in the Hall of Fame. He should be in there. He should have their jersey retired.
Well, he is a Hall of Famer. Like, how do you not retire a Hall of Famer's jersey? They
do things different in Vancouver.
They
do things different in Vancouver.
Scared to hurt Kirk McLean's feelings? And like, I grew up with Kirk. I played against Kirk and saw him, how great he was in 1994. But he had a couple of great years and some really great moments, but it's not Luongo's career.
Are they waiting for him to be like Rick Nash and come run Columbus now? Is that what you want to see? Lou come home and do it?
I think it's King Brodeur they must be worried about upsetting, isn't it? Like, I mean, how long ago was he the goalie? 40 years ago? Maybe it's John Garrett. Did he ever play for the Canucks, Garrett? No, I don't get it. I really don't. And, if I'm Roberto, I say, look, boys, I'll fly out, but put me up there. Put the jersey up there. I'll fly out. But, I'm not going cross country for a circle in the upper concourse,
Mac,
serious.
We know general managers in the National Hockey League, how they're trying to covet defense and how hard it is, especially teams like Edmonton and Toronto right now, between now and the trade deadline. Yet you look at Vancouver and where they were and where they are, particularly on that blue line. And it's almost as if within less than 12 months, you've got almost a brand new blue line here with Hronek, Zadorov, Cole, Sushi. And I'm like,
but
time to give some credit where credit's due here, with their management team and Alvin.
How long have we talked about the Toronto Maple Leafs needing? We love Morgan Riley. We love Morgan Riley. If you take Morgan Riley off that blue line, it's an American League defense. That's what it is right now. With the injuries they have, it's an American League defense. If you get that number one bona fide superstar, and they've got him, guys, who are you picking for the Norris today? Makar? Quinn Hughes?
That's close, but Quinn would,
that good,
I think, take it today.
Yeah.
He's that good.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it elevates your entire group. And the great trade with Detroit, there's no denying that. And the emergence of a couple of guys. But I look at Toronto's blue line last night. Lagerson played Chicago Wolves last year. LaJoie, the Chicago Wolves last year. The other kid played in San Diego, Benoit. I mean, Timmins played in the American League. That's 4 AHL blue liners on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you wonder why they can't get the puck going out of their own zone. You got Quinn Hughes. What he brings to the table with Vancouver has transformed their team. Between him and Pettersson, Besser's gone to another level this year after such a bad year last year. I'm really impressed with him. Tockett's the coach of the year today. They're that good. And Demko has gone to another level.
Well, and how much can you control, or how much are you at the mercy of sort of this randomness where, like, Brock Besser is on pace for 60. He's a goal behind Matthews this year. Meanwhile, Kuzmenko, who had 39, I know he's starting to heat up lately, but You know, like you're just kind of at the mercy of these guys having good years sometimes, right?
And they didn't come on, Besser. They wanted to trade him last year. Right. They were like trying to figure out every which way to get him out of there. I mean, so look, Alvin's done a pretty good job. Full marks to him. I think he's a hockey guy. He's been a long-time scout. I was a little skeptical when he got the job there, but he's done a good job. And Talk's come in, and you know what? He's a Berube type of guy. He's a guy that has, I love those type of coaches, whether it's Tippett or whether it's Lindy Ruff, or I just love those type of guys that have been Gerard Gallant, who have been around the game and can walk into a dressing room and speak to a team and command respect. I really like them.
Okay, you mentioned it, the St. Louis Blues, Craig Berube. What did you make of it, Mac? Is it because teams in the West now can look at even a year where they think that they might be on the cusp of missing the playoffs, think that they can still make it? Is that what is going on between, say, Nashville's coaching change and the St. Louis Blues? There's some underachieving teams. We want to go back into the playoffs. We want to make our $1 million a night.
Yeah, I think look, Doug Armstrong's a proud guy, and he's won a Stanley Cup, and they have a pretty good team. They've got a pretty good hockey team there. And the fact how they were playing was, I mean, when you lose to Columbus, Chicago, and who else did they lose 3 in a row? Was it Seattle or somebody? And I'm thinking, oh, something's coming here. Craig Berube's a good coach. But you know what? They want to make the playoffs. And sometimes it's just a matter of shaking it up. We know that. We've watched this for 50 years. That's what happens. Good coaches get fired because the GM is under the gun. And you know what? Don't ever kid yourself. The owners are in their ears nonstop. I've told you that. I fired 3 coaches in Columbus. I fired Dave King, Gerard Gallant, and myself. And every time the owner phoned me the night before and said, make a coaching change.
Sorry, yourself?
Make a coaching change.
You fired yourself?
Well, I was in Barnes & Noble shopping a couple of days.
When you got the call from yourself? Oh, sorry.
And my daughter and myself were in there looking for Christmas presents for stocking stuffers. And the old man phones me, hey, it's Mr. McConnell. I said, how you doing, Mr. Mac? Yeah, I want you to step down tomorrow morning. And I said, sorry, Mr. Mac, I'm not stepping down tomorrow because we've got 4 defensemen injured. Luke Richardson's out. Spacek's out. I'm not stepping down. I'll step down when some guys come back and we've got a chance to win. So that's when I'll step down. And that's when Gerard Gallant went in as the head coach. So, yeah, 3 times he phoned me. One time it was 11 o'clock at night. He phoned me after a 5-0 loss to Nashville. Fire Dave King. I said, who's going to coach? He said, you are. He thought I was running the Pee Wee triple travel team. Anyway.
When you stepped down, did you have to negotiate your own sort of severance package with yourself, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's funny. I think I was making $800,000 as a GM at the time, and so when they fired Dave King, I move in as coach. So I phoned the guy that was his financial guy. I said, what about a raise? Oh, you get a raise when you take over coaching? I said, well, yeah, I'm doing another job. So they bumped me up to $1 million. And so I was pretty pleased with that. So the only negotiating was what the difference from my GM to coaching. That's what came off when I stepped down.
Right.
So that was the negotiation. Yeah,
that's funny.
Wasn't that tough?
Mac, in the first hour, we had Phil Bourque talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I think a lot of people are surprised to see them, close to the bottom of the Metro. But it ain't Sid Crosby's fault, that's for sure. Like, it's incredible to watch this guy.
I watched him the other night in Montreal game. Like, seriously, guys, how good was he? How pure a talent. Character, leadership, class. He brings everything to the table, this guy. Work ethic. He just won't let them go. And then you got Carlson. He should have been playing in that game last night. And he should have been with you and Lindros and Gardner. That's how he
Men's
plays.
league
It's
hockey.
Like Riverboat. What?
Men's league hockey.
Oh my God, he loves to play. He would be great in Lake Louise when they have that big game up in Lake Louise. Honest to God.
If Sid can't guilt him into playing better defense, then who's going to do it? Is that? I mean, we talked a little bit with Bourque about it. Sullivan's got to be trying, but at the end of the day, that's still Kyle Dubas's guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't a big fan when Carlson came. I know he won the North. I know he had a fantastic year. I mean, I remember watching him in the playoffs. I mean, it was frightening how loose he even played at playoff time. But I thought last year he went to another level. I thought he'd be better. What about the power play? What is wrong? I mean, right. I know they picked up a few goals lately, but oh my God, how can that power play look like that? It's hard to believe. It really is. Yeah. So anyway, he's got to figure it out. He's got to figure it out. And what's Kyle going to say to him?
Very little to say.
He marches to his own drum.
But this is kind of
100%.
When you have these. Go ahead, Doug.
No, he's always marched to his own drum. And look, I'm not taking away from the unbelievable career he's had, and he is a great player. But I can't believe with Letang and he and Malkin and Crosby and Gensel and whatever that this power play can't be one of the best in the league. I thought that's the one thing he would bring to the table that was a guarantee, and it hasn't been there.
No, it really hasn't. So then I wonder with these like elite guys, how much coaching can be done with them. And I want to talk about the Oilers specifically. Chris Knoblauch comes in, and all of a sudden, McDavid's McDavid again, Draisaitl's playing, the team, Bouchard, they're good again. And how much of that is just great players, they play great eventually, or does a new coach come in and do something, say something different?
The only guy that can handle superstars in the league is Pascal Vincent in Columbus. He's taken Boudreau from a 50-goal guy and Laine from a 50-goal guy to 3-goal guys by benching them. So, seriously, I mean, how much coaching do you think I did with Steve Yzerman in Detroit?
Very little. Very little.
He didn't even know who I was, let alone coach him.
But
he used to call me Donnie. He used to call me Don MacLean from American Pie. Is what he thought I was.
But Mac, if teams like Nashville and we'll watch St. Louis, if they get a bump and they look a lot better, does that not encourage more teams to kind of revisit their situation if they think that Craig Berube's not that far off his Stanley Cup championship? Is there a chance that we see Berube come back before the end of this season as a NHL head coach?
Well, you've got Dean Evison, you've got Gerard Gallant, and you've got Berube, three guys that have had reasonable success, especially Gerard and Craig Berube. Berube with the Stanley Cup. You know what? It always makes you a little nervous when you see those names out there. Craig's a guy that I don't know. Is Craig ready to jump back in, or would Craig take a step back and wait till next year to come back? I wonder about that, And if Craig Berube's going to go back, doesn't he have to go with a team that has a chance to win a cup?
Maybe there's going to be some teams that think that that's the only change I got to make.
Leafs or what? Is that what you're getting at?
No, listen. There's a few teams with that's under the gun to win.
Yeah. Look, I think when you've won the Stanley Cup and it's on your resume, it means something. And Craig is one of those guys that can be tough on his players, but he's got a demeanor, and you know him a lot better than I do, Nick. But he's a guy that can be hard on his players. But there's a respect factor there because he knows how to treat pros. He knows how to treat NHLers. And I've respected that about him, watching him. What has he been, 5 years in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I think he's a good man, and he's paid his dues. I mean, this is a guy that was a tough guy as a player, worked hard as an assistant coach. I think he's got to be the number one guy on a lot of teams' lists, but we'll see what happens.
I wonder if that hasn't come back.
I'm a Gerard Gallant fan, too.
Yeah, but I wonder if that hasn't come back as like a desired quality in a coach. You look at the guys who would be considered kind of hard-ass coaches around the league. Torts is having a ton of success in Philly. Talk's having a ton of success in Vancouver. are these sort of the guys that everyone thinks you need to communicate well? Maybe
Listen,
someone needs someone in charge here.
I'm not suggesting that Sheldon Keefe's job is in trouble here, but
No.
when you speak of Tocchet, when you speak of Tortorella, I see a team with an identity now, right? And for the Leafs, I see a team that gets its points, but where would you put the Leafs' identity at? Just being this team that will outscore you with the last shot on goal?
Yes.
I can't figure out, until they get back to a respectable health situation on the back end, if that's going to happen, or if they bring in a defenseman or two. There's no identity there right now, and it's certainly not a playoff identity. I said the other night, I tweeted out, and I got ripped by a few people, which is kind of fun. I said, I'm watching Ottawa and Toronto play a total non-playoff style hockey game. Fun to watch, but not the way you're going to win playoff games. And it was like frightening watching that style of game. So until I haven't seen it all year.
You got to give Winnipeg a little bit of credit here for Rick Bowness, obviously dealing with a family situation there. Scott Arniel's there, but come on, they've done a heck of a job there.
So what happened in Winnipeg? They were a disaster last year,
and everybody was leaving,
and everybody was, Wheeler is gone. Wheeler was a great player in Winnipeg. He was a great player. But is it come to a point that Wheeler and Scheifele and whoever else was too much for the group, and one of them had to go? We thought it could have been Scheifele and him go at sometimes. And I've heard rumblings that, there was problems in the dressing room. Well, you know what? What did Rick Bowness do at the end of the season?
Rick
Bowness called them out. He called them out big time. And if you're a coach in the NHL, you better be strong enough to be able to take the big stand. And if you don't, and I go back, I interviewed in Boston for the assistant GM's job, years and years ago after Detroit. And I remember Harry Sinden said to me when he was interviewing me, by the way, Harry Sinden's 91 years of age. Who would believe that? 91, and still as sharp as a tack. But anyway, he said to me in the interview, can you talk in front of in front of the dressing room? I said, yeah, I think I can talk in front of the dressing room. He said, I will never hire a management guy who can't walk into the dressing room as an assistant GM, a GM, or whatever role that can't speak to the team and be hard on them. And it's not easy, guys. It's not easy walking into that room and taking charge. Rick Bowness did it. Don't think Torts hasn't done it. Don't think Lindy Ruff hasn't done it. Don't think all those types of guys haven't done it. Part of the job. And you've got to have a lot of experience, and you've got to have more than that to be able to step in and really put people in their spot. And it's awful because you hate to make guys cry, but it happens sometimes. You're hard on them and they break down. Look at Kyrou crying, bawling his eyes out last night.
We're going to get to that.
You're a terrific storyteller, and you do great impressions. Have you ever thought about writing a book?
I'm scared to death they're going to ask me to do another one. I'm scared to death they're going to ask me to do another one.
The more popular this book gets, the more people are going to figure out that Scott Morrison wrote the book.
You know what? I was just going to say that Scott Morrison's name should be a little bit. Scott's name should be a little smaller on that cover, don't you think?
How many more copies you got to sell to upgrade your Porsche?
Yeah, I want to get an anniversary edition.
All right. Go and enjoy your weekend.
Hey, guys, I thought you phoned me to go over the show, and you said we're going to talk Ottawa. So I do all this prep on Ottawa.
Well, we should do some. We got nowhere to be.
And you don't bring it up.
Give us your thoughts on, is Ottawa going to make the playoffs, or is this going to be another disappointing year for them and their fans?
If they miss the playoffs, like it's bad enough for Garriock that Trudeau's popularity is where it is because he's a big Trudeau guy. If the Ottawa Senators miss and Trudeau loses the election, Gary Ock will be in therapy for sure. I mean, they can't handle
This is the work he's done for the show, by the way.
Hey, that's your homework. That was your homework.
But listen, Tarasenko, Kubalik, Chikrin. I mean, guys, they've all got to be a lot better than Drew. He's got to be better. Everybody raves about Drew, and I'm thinking he's got to be better too. I mean, come on. And their goaltending is horrible. And Kubalik, somebody tell DJ Smith, Kubalik plays on his off wing. He got 30 goals in Chicago on his off wing. He got 20 in Detroit in his off wing, and he's not playing his off wing in Ottawa. Like, come on, give me a break.
There you go.
I'm tired of giving tips. I'm exhausted from giving tips.
So they're missing the playoffs. That's what you're telling me.
It doesn't look good. It does not look good.
Okay, can I tell them we've had enough of them?
Yeah, no, it's time.
Okay.
It's time.
Listen.
Kitty Jet.
Hey, listen, we know it's, you got the next few hours going door to door selling your book. So good luck with that with Jill.
I got Clark's here. Clark's been helping me with the props. So I just picked him up at the airport. He listened to your show the other day. He thought it was a little dead ass. So he thought you need a little bite today. So I tried to bring
Well, you did it. You did it on Off the Rails Friday. Okay, Mac, thanks for doing this.
Hey, guys, I really appreciate you having me on. And I really appreciate you promoting the best-selling book in Canada.
Thanks, Mac. We appreciate it. It's a wonderful book.
Okay, let's go 2 for 2 here. And we got to mention that this is a great time of the year to give somebody a book.
Yes,
down and back.
This is my camera. Where's my single? There's my... Down Back, my book, which I have not promoted on this show. I don't know very often. What is it, 10 days till Christmas now? I don't know. But it's still for sale, and I wrote it, and it's about
wrote
stuff.
One too. I didn't bring it.
Yes, Undrafted. Very good book.
Simon and Schuster.
I don't really like selling it, so if you want to buy it, it exists.
It exists. You have an amazing story.
Thanks.
Mine, what is mine compared
there's
to
a
yours?
Stanley Cup at Club 54 with Madonna.
There's a million of those.
Not many.
Just the mere fact we're here doing this, me and you, is a story in itself.
You know what else is a story? Game time.
All right. No Sammy for game time.
I know.
I'm twirling the baton.
Notebook here.
The baton.
All right. It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Play responsibly.
It's game time.
Oh, hey, Colbs. What's up? Little shout out there. So I was looking at Stanley Cup odds today. The odds of teams winning the Stanley Cup. You want to guess who the favorite by Bet365 gambling odds is to win the Stanley Cup at this point of the season?
Gosh. Are they dumb enough to think that 8 games in a row would push Edmonton right back up at the top?
It's actually not a bad guess. Edmonton is 5th above the Toronto Maple Leafs in terms of Stanley Cup odds at this point.
Would they be smart enough to go with what every other gut instinct has told us for the last 30 or 40 years? Just pick the year before team.
There it is. There's the guy. You got it. Vegas. Vegas is the Cup favorite. Colorado nipping at their heels in Boston in 3rd. The Rangers in 4th. Leafs, as I said, in 5th. The one that shocks me, you kind of tick down. So, Toronto in 6th. Winnipeg right behind him in 7th. You got to go farther back to find Florida still.
Really?
Yeah, Florida's close to 10. That's a pretty good pick. And LA's right there, too, at it's plus 1,500.
Can I ask you, because the team that I watch sometimes that look like the Russian Red Army is the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then there's other times I'm like, oh, no, they're no good. They're no good.
Yeah.
And that blue line and what you get out of it. And, kudos to Steven Stamkos, who, believe it or not, had his first 4-goal game.
That is shocking. His first 4-goal
in the National Hockey League, future Hall of Famer, 200 power play goal last night too.
Wow.
I think. And marvelous career. But that team, and you watch Kucherov, Andres, Cody Ceci, they should be one of those top teams.
Yeah, you know what? They're mid-pack. They're 15th in the NHL in terms of cup odds right now, plus 2,200. Those are the type of bets you should make, right? Not a team who's got short odds, but someone that you think can kind of figure something out midseason. Tampa's there. I like Florida and LA. Those are good ones. The other ones I wanted to bring to you, Kip, were will these teams make playoffs or not? And they're teams with pretty even odds on both sides of yes and no. The Toronto Maple Leafs go up against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Saturday night, who are favored to miss the playoffs barely. There are longer odds, plus 110 to make the playoffs, seventh in their division. What do you think? Is this a team that's going to sort it out?
I'm never one to say yes or no right away. I go to the process of elimination.
Yeah.
So if you think they're in,
Who's out?
who's out?
That's a great place to start.
And I'm just sitting watching the Philadelphia Flyers, and here they are, 3 points out of the lead in the Metro, and they're not going away. The Islanders, who we were giggling at, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
4 weeks ago? And you were like, yeah, I see it. They're no good.
I know.
They're no good. Look at them. Look at the run they're on.
When was it, 4 straight games?
Carolina has never looked like a team that we thought should be competing for the Stanley Cup, and there's some goaltending inconsistencies there. And then the Washington Capitals, they are one of the worst scoring teams in the league.
Ovi's still on 5?
Still at 5.
Pace for 16 goals.
I don't know if there's 3 teams that have more goals than the Washington Capitals. And yet,
I didn't realize it was that bad.
They're at the bottom. I don't know where they are.
Goals for, they are literally second last to only San Jose.
Second last.
San Jose has 3 fewer goals.
Second last. And they're
the Caps
14-8-4. So tell me where Pittsburgh now is gonna come in and just, I don't know. Is Pittsburgh capable of doing what the Edmonton Oilers just did and rip off 8 in a row?
You know, I think they, maybe not 8 in a row, but they're not that many points back. I think the Capitals are going to come back. You know, I think they can catch, I don't like saying it, but I don't think the Islanders are as good as their record. So either way, they're running out of time. They are a team that, if you want to say they make the playoffs, plus 110, pretty good bet there. Other question I'll bring to the table for you is they have a line on how many points the Leafs will finish with. 103.5 is the line. Do you think they will finish with more or less than 103.5 points?
I probably would think that I like their chances at 104 or 105.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And
they just find their way. They've got this arrogance about putting the puck in the net. They don't, even last night, that third period, we're sitting on the desk and we're watching it and we're like, they're gonna score.
Yeah.
When he's gone, right?
You can just feel like how confident they are that they're going to get 1 or 2 good looks, and Austin's just going to find a way to put the puck in the net.
Did you see Nylander's post-game quote too? He's like, talking about what they were thinking going into the third, and he goes, well, we were thinking, we know we can get 5. Like, what's an insane thing to think?
Oh, and he believes it.
Yeah, like you average 3.5 goals per game as a team, and he's like, we know we can get 5. Just got to try, I guess. I don't know.
But keep in mind, too, that the Edmonton Oilers have had an incredible run here.
Yeah.
And they're just a 500 team right now.
I know. Or they
rip
13,
off 8 in a
13
row.
and 1.
8 in a row, and they're 13, 13 and 1.
But 13, 13, 1 in the West. They're 2 points out of the wild card spot with games in hand.
But they're also like 2 or 3 losses away from sinking right back in the bottom.
See, that's the problem their bad start put them in. It's just like, let's say Connor were to get hurt or, just a bad thing were to happen to them. You don't have that sort of built-in buffer. But boy, they are back looking like, as good as Vegas and Vancouver in the West.
Okay. You wrapping up?
That's it. Oh, yeah. Let me do the whole thing. I know. Hey, all right here. That was Game Time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Play responsibly.
Am I going to be the guy to tell Sammy now that you're taking over that spot?
I am definitely not.
Okay.
It is all his.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to get into Jordan Kyrou's night in St. Louis, a very emotional one. And also the story that Frank Saravelli, who's been a contributor on the Real Kyper and Bourne show through Daily Face-Off, is telling us about Välimäki from the Coyotes having a very tough night after taking a puck to the face.
I can tell you I've been there. Yep.
And the quote in the story from Frank was unable to function as he went to a hospital in Dallas only to kind of be rejected.
Yeah, they're like, go to a hotel. Anyway, we'll get into it.
We'll get into that. Plus more on the Real Kyper and Bourne show. Don't go away. We are back. The Kypreos Justin Bourne. Is that my book up?
Look at this. All 3 books promoted on one day.
Wow.
The Friday before Christmas, everyone's going to be shopping. This is prime time here.
There you go.
Look at this.
Now, any big thought on the cover, or just you posed for that, or is that another picture somewhere?
You know what's funny is they actually originally did the cover of me as like a 3-month-old sitting in the Stanley Cup when I was just like a little baby. And I didn't think that was what I wanted. So so we had to go back and forth. Whereas you just chose a handsome picture of yourself.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked Doug MacLean.
Okay.
Once your book goes into movie rights, who's playing Justin Bourne?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I know it. Can I get like young Jim Carrey or something like that? Would that work? Who's Nick Kypreos?
Well, you can kind of do the reverse thing because I've been working with you, and sometimes for you, for 3 years.
I'm terrified of this answer.
What's the over-under on the people that have called you Jason Bourne?
Oh, my God. Kip, I don't even argue anymore. I just respond to it. Like in wardrobe, that's how it's written on my bag.
It's no one's fault except Matt Damon's fault.
Is it Robert Ludlum or something who wrote the books? He's something to blame too.
So I'm telling you that it needs to be Matt Damon who plays you because you've played him all these years.
The one thing it does do for me is it helps me helps people spell my name, like reservations. I just say like the movies, like the movies. Yeah,
I would get Liam Neeson to play me.
That's a great pick for you
because all I want at some point is for him to say, I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you.
Did you ever say that on the ice? You should have said that on the ice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Last night, just the opposite of maybe wanting to kill somebody was the emotion of Jordan Kyrou. He's been through a little bit here, and there's no question that there was something between him and Craig Berube that probably didn't connect, but so what? The game's 100 years old. Yes. Not the first player-coach relationship that wasn't the best. Will not be the last.
But I want to ask you about his initial comment. Initially they asked him.
Yes.
What was your relationship like with Berube? And he said, I have no comment. He's not my coach anymore.
Yes.
What did you think of that response?
What I thought about it was if you're trying to not make a story out of it, that's the worst thing you could say. Yeah. So he didn't think it out very well.
No.
I think there's a part of him that just had this emotion of he's gone now, so I don't
need to tip my cap to him anymore.
Don't need to tip my cap to him, and I don't need to have people under the impression that it was rosy and lovey. I don't know if he just knew the implications of what he didn't say. And that's what we do on this show all the time. It's not what you say sometimes, it's what you don't say.
Right.
And we read between the lines and people come to their own conclusions. And clearly the fans of St. Louis came to their own conclusion on how Jordan Kyrou went about his business on not maybe showing the respect a Stanley Cup champion head coach should get.
And Kyrou won a cup with Craig Berube, and all these people loved Berube for what he did for the organization. The first Stanley Cup they've ever won there in St. Louis. I had tweeted that it seemed like an immature answer to me, and I had people saying to me, like, what, like telling the truth is immature? It's like, he didn't tell the truth. What would be mature is if you have a bone to pick or it didn't go well, you could say, it didn't work at the end. You know, you'd say what the problem is, or if you're not willing to say there's a problem, then don't say there's a problem. Don't do the passive aggressive. It's fine.
Okay, let's go to Jordan Kyrou last night on a Kyper's Clipper on hearing the boos last night.
And, how difficult is it to have the fan base react the way they did tonight? Were you hearing the boos on the ice?
Yeah, definitely heard those. I mean, it's not easy, obviously, but I see where they're coming from, with how my comments sounded. So, yeah, it's definitely tough. I mean, I love playing here. I love playing in front of the fans. So, yeah.
What would you want to say about Craig Berube? I mean, he's mentioned that he was your coach for a long time, but like, how did he impact your career? I mean, what can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, helped me in a lot of ways, right? It's really helped me round out my game and try to be a more complete player. So, like I said, I respect him as a guy, and no hate towards him at all.
Okay, I want to say two things off of that. One is that I also don't think it was a very big deal. Like, I can't believe people booed him for that. Like, I was just like, it was kind of an immature comment, but okay. To me, it was a bit of a nothing, and I'm shocked that fans cared the way they did. The other point I'll make is I feel like that follow-up question, what did Craig Berube do for you? You're holding the guy hostage at that point. The fans just booed him. He's crushed by it. He can't give an honest answer now. Now he has to say all's gravy. So those are my two takes.
Okay, I'm going to follow it up after we hear Jordan get a little emotional with this next clip.
You're getting pretty emotional here. Where are the emotions coming from?
I mean, it's just tough, right? Like, I love playing here, so it's tough to hear the fans booing me there. Sorry.
Jordan, they'll obviously come around. I mean, they know you want to be here, play hard, and produce for them. I mean, do you feel like, it's just a bump in the road that it can be overcome and they'll love you again?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I just want to focus on my future and focus on, trying to be a more complete player and, what I can do to help the team win, right? So, that's just my goal right now.
Yeah, listen, my first thought is I feel like, how much he's feeling it himself. And I don't mind hearing a guy, like if he shrugged it off, I'd be more pissed off than, like, I'm not necessarily, patting him on the back for crying either. Like, I mean, we don't need a ton of criers in the game.
It's a bit much to me.
It's a little much, but at least he's sensitive of it, rather than standoffish on it. Yes. So either way, maybe it's not a great win situation, but I think it's a fair comment to say he handled it in not a mature way. Right?
I would agree, but
if he just would have come out with those comments last night, the first time they asked him about his coach, that he helped me in a lot of ways. That's it.
Yeah.
If he just would have come out with one of those, we won a cup together, he helped me out in a lot of ways, this wouldn't have even turned into a story.
I mentioned Jim Carrey, and I reminded of the movie Liar, Liar, where the kid says something to him. Have you seen Liar, Liar?
Yes.
Where it's
great
like,
movie.
Sometimes grown-ups have to lie. Like sometimes that's part of the whole thing.
Yeah,
he was great.
And he was just not prepared.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't, he hasn't been around long enough. He hasn't experienced the media enough to understand the dynamics of maybe just how much Craig Berube was respected for being the guy that delivered a Stanley Cup to them.
Yeah.
And he deserved more respect from you, Jordan. Even if you didn't believe it, to your point, just don't pour gasoline on the fire. And he did, and he learned a very valuable lesson that choose your words wisely.
I'm sure PR was in his ear after the game. Okay, you're going to do this presser and follow up on it. And because I did notice that he said, I understand where they're coming from about the fans, which is a pretty.
Yeah.
So I bet you he gets like rousing cheers next game. I really do.
And one more thing. It is the perfect storm for him because it's just not about that situation. It's the fact that he's a star on that team. He's paid like a star, and he's disappointing himself.
Yeah.
That's what happened there. He knows he's underperforming. He's not living up to the contract right now. that in itself has put a tremendous strain on him. And I think in many ways it was just the tipping point of the whole situation.
Came at the wrong time for him. Let's make sure we get to everything before the end of the show. Talking about being honest in interviews. Stuart Skinner yesterday, the Oilers lose to the Lightning. You know, they heavily outshot the Lightning. Stuart Skinner had this to say post-game about his performance.
Yeah, I think the guys played a heck of a game. I don't think anybody in this room should be upset except for me, to be honest. I think that I ended up kind of losing us the game. And that's something that I'll take on, and I'll be better for it. But I think these guys in here should all be very happy with how they played. They were fantastic.
It's refreshing.
Loved it.
Right?
Yeah.
But
he's taking too much.
No. He went on a terrific run with the rest of the team for 8, like a guy with a roll of dice at the crap table.
Not
like
you. Didn't you
right?
win a bunch of money craps once?
I ran a table for almost an hour.
Like an hour.
Yeah. But you're going to crap out every once in a while, right? You're going to snake eyes.
Most times, yes.
Unfortunately, for a team that's supposed to win the Stanley Cup this year or be really close to it, I think it's another reminder of you got this kid that I'm not sure how much weight you want to put on his shoulders, and you don't want too many nights when he ends the game going, I was the reason why we lost.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be careful with putting that type of pressure on a guy.
Yeah.
And that's okay to do it once, but you don't want him feeling like that, because that's what Jack Campbell did to himself a few times in Toronto, and it didn't help him. That's for sure.
No, it's, if Vasilevsky after 2 Stanley Cups says I lost us the game, everyone goes, all right, well, he's owning up to that one. We'll move on. You don't want to draw too much attention to yourself when you're an .885 save percentage guy like Stu Skinner here. So,
okay, we mentioned it before break. Välimäki Coyotes took a puck to the face, was taken to the hospital.
Yeah,
and I don't know, just
to the hospital, I believe.
Did he?
Yeah,
and
Dallas.
Basically, they had told him, we've got gunshot wound victims here. We don't really prioritize you, and no one's arguing that.
Well, and imagine you're in Dallas, and they're like, sorry, you took a puck to the face. We got things going on.
Yeah, but, you shouldn't also shrug off the fact that he did have a fracture in his face. He had a hole in his mouth.
Oh, God, yeah.
And he needed 60 stitches either. So,
I don't mean to make light of it all.
No.
I've been there.
Oh, no, for sure.
I've had that experience.
He shouldn't be told, go away and come back tomorrow either.
And his wife had to call the NHL PA, and the PA, I think, did some advocating on his behalf to get him care sooner.
I think the PA had issues with the fact that there's no one of any medical status that
they're the performance coach with him, I think, not
escorted him as well, which I've never heard of. I've gone to hospitals after games on a number of occasions. Either a doctor's coming with me or the head trainer, someone with some real medical background. So this is a strange story, but for more of that, go to Daily Faceoff and read the story.
See how that goes.
All right, how do we do without Sammy? Did it feel a little...
The love of the Zags jersey, the Owen Sound platers in the background. We repped him, his vibes as best we could today.
All right, where is he? In London tonight to watch his Owen Sound team?
A junior hockey game. He doesn't have some pressing function.
Man, oh man, he's got a good life.
Things go pretty well for Sammy.
Our thanks to Doug MacLean in this hour. Give us a rating and review if you get a chance. We'd love to hear from you. We're back on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. The real Kyper and Bourne.